This is probably the Maple Leafs' best team they've had in the Austin Matthews.
I agree with you. I was about to break it out.
Today is February 15th, 2025. Welcome to the Checking From Behind podcast. I'm your host, Zach, joined as always by my co-host, Preston. This episode is going to be a little bit of a shorter one, guys, because Four Nations is going on. There's like I think a 10-day break or something, close to 2 weeks. How are you enjoying the Four Nations tournament so far?
I only have had time to watch one game, so it was the Sweden-Canada game. A really good game. Big upset earlier today, Finland in overtime over Sweden. It's going to be interesting to see what plays out, because as of we're recording right now, Team Canada and Team USA are playing tonight. So if USA wins that game in regulation tonight, they clinch a spot in the championship game. Mm-hmm. So that'll be really interesting to see, because then you would essentially have Canada, Sweden, and Finland all tied at 2 points.
You know what that means? Our team, my team, Finland, could, who do they play next? Would it be Sweden? No, it'd be Canada. They play.
Yeah, so
hold on.
After today, so USA plays Finland. No, USA plays Sweden, and then Canada plays Finland.
Yes. You know, it'll be fucking hilarious. Finland beats Canada in regulation and plays the U.S.
I mean, that might be what it comes down to.
That if the U.S. wins in regulation tonight, or if the U.S. just wins in general, it'll come down to that. Except I think Finland would have to win in regulation, if I'm doing the math correct.
The easiest math is Finland just wins. I mean, USA just wins today.
Yeah. What did Chris say?
Possibility of NHL jerseys going back to home white jerseys.
Oh, whatever.
Anyway, lost my train of thought. Thank you, Chris.
I mean, when looking at this Four Nations tournament, it's been very exciting to watch that compared to the All-Star game, these players are actually trying. They want to fight for their country. We've heard Brady Tkachuk say that this game upcoming between USA and Canada is the biggest game in the last 9 years of his life, which is saying
he
something.
Ain't wrong.
I mean, he's never been to the playoffs before in Ottawa. I mean, you look at it like these players love repping their country, and when you hear some people, I don't really care about it because it's only 4 teams. Okay, but it's not that it could be 2 fucking teams in one game for all we care. If it was USA Canada and be just like a best of 3 series, for example, guess what? I would still enjoy it because these players are trying. It's all about these players wanting to try. Like if there's an All-Star game, it's a fucking 10-7 game, 3-on-3 full ice overtime, and these players are they're not trying at all. So I think that's the huge difference with this.
I mean, the one part I always liked about the All-Star stuff is the skills tournament, because I thought that was always pretty fun to watch. ESPN has done a pretty bad job the last few years in the coverage of that, especially the Vegas one. I remember being pretty awful.
Well, how long ago was that? Was that 2 years ago?
I think so, 2 years ago, and they did the shooting at the Bellagio, the passing.
I remember that they had. They had all of these courses outside of the arena. They had an outside shooting drill.
Yeah, they
did
on the street. No, they did one in the Bellagio fountain where it was precise pass. They were doing saucer passes.
What was
in
the
one
fountain? Was the one on the beach the Florida one then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
was last year. That was better. Yeah. No, that one in Vegas. Yeah, they were in the Bellagio fountain. They did one I think on the street was precise shooting.
Okay.
Or something. I remember the Bellagio fountain one being horrible because the players did not give a shit. And they gave the worst interviews I've ever seen after an event. A reporter was asking horrible questions. The players were giving horrible answers. It's just a combination. I was I'm just here so I won't get fined.
Yeah, basically. Was it actually a thing where?
No, Toronto was last year. Toronto. Vegas was 3 years ago.
Okay, Florida was 2 years ago
yes.
then. Okay, that makes sense. We probably already have somebody in the comments saying, you guys are fucking wrong. Anyways, I love those comments. Fuck, I lost my train of thought now.
Yes, but the All-Star game, I haven't really watched. I think the last one I remember watching was the one where John Scott won MVP. I just watched it because of John Scott.
Was that 2016?
I think it was 2018.
Something like that.
Yeah, 2017, 2018-ish.
The skills comps, I genuinely enjoy watching.
Yeah.
But the All-Star game, at first I thought the 3-on-3 stuff was fun. Well, maybe it was just because I was just becoming a teenager. I think I was maybe 15, 16 when it started. But then as time went on, the 3-on-3 stuff, it got so still so fast because these players knew
the goalies don't even go down on shots.
No, they don't. They just sit there. The goalies are basically just sitting in their nets the entire time. They're sitting ducks.
I get it. No one wants to get hurt at an All-Star game. You're not going to go super hard.
I do miss the 5-on-5 East versus West stuff though, because if
they used to try more.
They would, and maybe it wouldn't be as physical as what you may like, but at least it was tight checking. Wasn't a ton of space on the ice, and you kind of played it like it's just a normal 5-on-5
I did like
game.
when they switched to drafting teams better than having divisional teams. I thought that made it a little bit more interesting, like watching the draft. Like I remember last year, Austin Matthews picked all his boys.
That last year's draft process, I don't think it was that bad. Like you had,
I cringed at the celebrity coaches. That was cringy.
I don't think that was needed, to be honest with you.
No. I'm not watching an All-Star game to see fucking Michael Bublé on the ice having pick a team for an All-Star game.
It was Bublé, Bieber, Tate McRae, shout out my girl, and then there was one other.
Will Arnett.
Yeah.
I've never even seen this dude in anything. What is he famous for? He's not even funny.
Hold on. Are you talking about Will Arnett?
Yeah. He's in like Fox Sports stuff all the time for the NFL. He does stuff for them all the time. Him and like Rob Riggle, those two.
What is Will Arnett? So, his roles, he's an American actor and comedian born May 4th, 1970, if you wanted to know that. He is widely known for his roles as Gob Bluth in the Fox and Netflix sitcom Arrested Development, 03 to 06, 2013, 18 to 19, and the titular character in the Netflix animated series BoJack Horseman.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. That's funny.
I don't know. I don't like it when like you like they try to force celebrities into events. Yeah. Like I don't care. I'm not watching the All-Star game to see Justin Bieber. I genuinely do not care. I just want to watch hockey.
Me too. And even like I don't.
I'm curious if that even gets casual fans to like tune in. We're like, oh, I heard Tate McRae's going to be a celebrity coach tonight for the All-Star game. Got to tune in. She's going to stand on the bench.
Let's go.
Yeah.
And then I'm pretty sure they have like their own individual cameras on them too.
Probably.
I mean, it's fucking. I mean, it doesn't surprise me because it's ESPN and I know it's the NHL's thing.
And NHL's kind of always been out of touch with that kind of stuff. I feel like. I mean, it's run by a bunch of older dudes that don't really know what the kids want. And I think the best way to promote your product is just to have good hockey, good sport. I think they're getting better at having like marketing their players a little bit more. I think the NBA is still the king of doing that. At least for some of their veterans. Back in the day, I don't know about now. The NFL is really, really good at marketing their players. Yeah. Like, I mean, in the NBA, like, if you look at the ratings are kind of going down, except for LeBron or Steph Curry play. Mm-hmm. Like, those old guys still get the views because people love those guys, but not as much love for the younger guys. In the NHL, I know they're really trying to force feed Connor Bedard. Hasn't really had the season that he wanted, and the Blackhawks are not good. The Blackhawks have had so many national television games this year.
All because of Connor Bedard.
I mean, Connor McDavid will probably get more, as will Austin Matthews, but it's tough because they're Canadian teams. Mm-hmm. So, it's just tougher. Especially Connor McDavid out on the West Coast.
All the way out in Edmonton. And there's nothing wrong with him being in Edmonton. It's just it's very hard to market.
I don't think most casual people even know where Edmonton is.
You ask them, they're like somewhere in Canada. I don't know. Like, I bet you half of them probably think it's closer to the Central or all the way out on the West Coast.
And this is just speaking of as an American, like most Americans, unless they're like hockey fans, wouldn't even know where fucking Calgary is either, or Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Yeah, they probably know like Toronto and Montreal and Ottawa. Probably Vancouver.
Half Americans probably don't know where the hell Anaheim is in California.
I wouldn't put it past them.
I wish I was kidding.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It used to be a thing for a while in the NFL where like guys would get drafted to the Buffalo Bills. They thought they were going to New York City. It's like New York, like oh shit, and they go, how far away is New York? It's like 400 miles. Like what?
We're about an 8.5-hour drive away with good traffic.
Yeah. Americans' geography don't necessarily go hand in hand.
No, they don't.
Not calling them stupid, but
I'm calling them stupid.
I'm not calling them smart.
I'm calling. That's funny.
I don't even know how we got into that, but
no, I don't know.
It's been that kind of week for NHL news. So.
Dude, there's been like nothing going on at the NHL. Can't we just get like some fucking blockbuster trade already? Like at this point.
True.
Like just send Mikko Rantanen at this point to like the fucking Calgary Flames. They're going all in apparently because they don't suck now. Like, just send Mikko Rantanen to Calgary.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
Yeah, do you think that it's possible for the Hurricanes to end up getting traded? I mean, trading.
They'd lose that trade. They wouldn't get because they kind of went all in to get him in the first place. So if you don't know what we're talking about, Elliot Freeman is reporting that there's a chance that if the Hurricanes cannot get an extension done with Rantanen before the trade deadline, they are going to explore trading him, which would be wild to me. Completely wild. Did they really think that, they would get him and he just sign an extension right away? Because if they do, great, do it immediately. But if not, I would hesitate a little bit on making that trade.
I love Eric Tulsky. I think it's his first year as GM too, because Waddell left to go to Columbus. But you look at Tulsky, he loves to make the big moves, and we saw him do it multiple times. We've seen it multiple times where I think he's going to put the old Carolina past him. He's going to want to sign players, and they were talking extension with Rantanen when he got traded, but talks haven't really been, I guess they haven't sufficed enough.
We're probably on pause right now because of like the World Cup of hockey.
I'm not
the Four Nation Fate. Yeah, he's playing. Not really going to focus on the contract
right
now.
Course.
Yeah, I don't see a world though where like if I'm the Hurricanes, it still doesn't make sense to trade him. Maybe we don't get an extension done because unless you get like a haul for him, which I don't think they would. I think they get decent return, but I don't think they get what they gave up.
I don't know if they would get what they gave up, but I also don't think that it's going to be. I think the return might be a little bit better than what you might think. What return?
I don't think they're going to get like fleeced or anything. I mean, what teams out there would even consider like making the move for him? I mean,
it's so crazy. He's only making like $4.9 million or something like that, under 5.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see because they're not going to trade it to like another Eastern Conference rival.
No,
I mean, it would have to be someone in the Western Conference. No, I wouldn't think they would trade him to the Atlantic either, unless they got like a really, really good return.
Fuck it, Vegas.
Hey, they got cap space.
Shea Theodore will be back for game 1.
You say that because Shea Theodore. I guess we could talk about that.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about that on Wednesday. Shea Theodore broke his wrist in game 1 of the Four Nation face-off. He's probably gonna be out until the playoffs.
Game 1 of round 1, he will be back. By the way, boys.
Yeah, probably. They'll probably slow. It's like recover quickly, but not too quick.
He's like, you know what? Your wrist is good. There's 2 weeks left. You know what? I just need you to make sure that it's.
Doctor, he's not ready yet, right? He's like, no, he's not ready. He's like, that's what I thought,
exactly.
Doctor.
You want your job still?
I hate saying that, but if Vegas is willing to give up the assets, I can never tout a team like Vegas out of trading for anybody. They're always looking to get better. They're not really loyal. They don't. We've seen it before with how they treated players, like with Marc-Andre Fleury, where they just traded away for nothing after him winning a Vezina trophy. They gave away Max Pacioretty for nothing. They're not afraid to just cut ties with a player if they feel like they are no longer in their best interest to help them win.
I mean, that's just what a winning franchise does, and
it's kind of ruthless.
It is definitely ruthless, but at the end of the day, they're focused on making money, but also more importantly, winning championships.
I think if you win championships, the money comes along with it. I don't even necessarily know if it's like a business move. It's like, oh, if we get this guy, he's going to be so marketable and yada, yada, yada.
I mean, Rantanen and Loki is marketable in Vegas.
But
just in general,
if you make the playoffs every year, if you're a top team in your conference, you're in Stanley Cup contention every year. People are going to they're still a newer team, but they've already won a Stanley Cup. They have a rabid fan base already in Vegas just because they went in and won immediately. So I think making money comes along with winning. Yeah, you can be like a bad team like the Dallas Cowboys and still make a boatload of money every year because you're the Dallas Cowboys. But hockey's a little bit different. I think, but Vegas, I hate that you mentioned them because now that you say it, it makes perfect sense. I still don't think Carolina would trade him though, unless they got I'm sure they'll make a couple calls saying, hey, we're not going to get an extension done with him right now. What is your offer?
You know what? If I'm Carolina, what I do, I'm not in a front office or anything, but if you can't get an extension done with Carolina, you have to find a way that if you trade Mikko to a certain team, that he'll be able to sign an extension there because then you'll get more for Mikko.
Yeah, no, yeah.
But if you trade him to a team like Vegas,
there's no way they're extending him.
Vegas, well, not only that, but also if Vegas, let's say they aren't going to extend him or whatever, Mikko doesn't want to extend there or whatever. If you're Vegas, you're like, you know what? We don't want to extend Mikko, or Mikko doesn't want to extend with us. We want him, but we're going to give you this package, which nearly isn't as good as a team. Let's say I don't know. For shits and giggles, let's say the Washington Capitals are going to give you a certain package for him, right? It's so much better, but that's a team you're competing with in the playoffs. You have to make a business decision here. Do you want something that will make your team better now, but then you're giving away a 100-point player to a rival, and they're probably going to face in the second round of the playoffs, maybe? Or you can give him to a Western Conference team. You don't know if the assets Vegas is going to give you is going to help you like more than Rantanen is. So either hold on to him, risk losing him in free agency, or what?
I still think the best. If I'm Carolina, I wouldn't trade him at all.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you.
Because it would be a great if you can get an extension done before the playoff, like before the trade deadline. Because I think after that, I don't think you're allowed to sign players, right?
I have no idea on that. You
think
might be right.
I think there are rules of like I don't know if I know there are rules in other sports where like after a certain date you're not allowed to have contract talks with players. I could be wrong. I know it's definitely during the playoffs for playoff teams. I've never heard of a team signing a player to an extension mid-playoff run.
No, it can't be in the playoffs.
I think non-playoff teams can extend players, but I don't think playoff teams can. But you're Carolina. You make this trade for Rantanen clearly with the intention of we think we're missing a player or two. You trade away a really good player, Marty Necas, who's been tearing it up in Colorado. By the way, he's been really good there. And Jack Drury, like more of a depth guy, but still for a team like Colorado, that's valuable for them. For a 100-plus point player every year, I mean, Rantanen's been a little bit slow to start in Carolina. Probably a big change for him in Colorado. But you still have your best. If you want to win the Stanley Cup this year, your best chance is to do that with Mikko Rantanen, no matter what the case is. And you know what? If you have a deep playoff run and he likes playing there and he sees like I can win a Stanley Cup here in a year or two with them, he might sign an extension. But it sounds like Rantanen's pretty hard on being a free agent this summer.
If I'm him, I do want to test the market no matter what team he's on. At least
because if he's trying to get as much money as he can, go to free agency.
Yeah,
have a bidding war. This free agency might be crazy. Mitch Marner and Mikko Rantanen might be free agents.
And I haven't heard anything on the Leafs and Marner talking extensions at all outside of
the season. That's probably if it's quiet, I think that's a good thing. I think that means things are going well because normally if contract talks aren't going well, one side will leak something.
Yeah.
Just as a negotiating tactic. Put pressure on the other side to get something done.
It does feel like Marner is going to stay in
I think that's the
Toronto.
Most logical case.
I think like if it comes out that right before July 1st, whatever, they sign him, they re-sign him, whatever, I won't be shocked. Like if it happens, let's say June 28th, for example, right after the draft, Mitch Marner signs a $8 million contract. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, we didn't hear anything about it. It came out of left field. No, these parties are going to be talking about it. And I think it's nice on Treveling's part too, to kind of keep everything in because sometimes you'll see a GM, like you said, leak stuff out because
sometimes the players' agents will leak things too.
Because they feel like they're not getting enough pay and they want up, or the team will do it because they feel like the player's asking for too much and to put the pressure on the player or whatever. And I think both sides, if I'm Marner, both sides know that he wants to stay in Toronto, feels like, but also if you're the Leafs, you have to know that other teams, if he hits the open market, are going to be gushing over him.
Well, I also think the fans would lose their minds if they just let him walk.
Oh yeah, by far. And if you're Toronto, it's cup or bust for this team, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
it's been a cup or bust for them for the last 5 years.
And you're riding with Marner until the wheels fall off. And it will shock me 1,000% if this guy hits the open market and we don't see the Leafs sign him because I think that if he somehow hits the open market, he's not going back to Toronto. If he is back in Toronto, it's going to be before July 1st, unless
he'll have a decision to make because his decision is going to be like, do I want to take the money or do I really want to win in Toronto?
That's going to be a huge thing, and
because he's played there his whole career. How important is that him? To him for his legacy to win in Toronto.
I think it's very important. He is Austin Matthews' right-hand man. He's there with Willie. He's there with Tavares and Morgan. All of those guys grew up
Tavares
together.
might not be in the team next year either.
There's talks that he's going to get a $7 million extension for multi-year. I think it's going to be 2x7.
That's a good contract.
That's exactly where you and Chris thought he was going to be. Actually, I thought he was going to be around $5 million. You and Chris had him 6-7. So props to you guys for having him there.
Well, we also didn't anticipate the cap going up this much, so that might have bought him like an extra $1 million.
That's also what I kind of didn't take into consideration.
Well, yeah, you don't really think about. We were talking about this last summer.
Yeah.
So, I think a Tavares extension makes sense for all sides.
I think personally, this is probably the Maple Leafs' best team they've had in the Austin Matthews.
I agree with you. I was about to bring it up.
And it's all because of goaltending.
And their defense has been much better.
It's been shut down.
I know they gave Chris Tanev a pretty meaty contract.
Oh, well.
But he's been exactly what they needed.
The Toronto Maple Leafs they're in the middle of the pack in goals for. They have goals against. They're at 154, which is.
You got to remember Matthews missed a bunch of time too.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean,
but honestly, like the fact that like their goal scoring is down and they're still winning like pretty handily for most of their games, that's a good sign. Because we know they can step up the goal scoring when they need to, but that also tells me they're playing much better defense. And, yeah, their goaltending tandem is in a much better spot than I think it has been in the whole Austin Matthews career. Because they had Freddie Anderson for a while, and he was always good enough. It's just the team around him would collapse. And now you have Joseph Woll and who's the back? Stolars. Stolars has been putting up amazing numbers. And, Woll's been pretty good when he's in the net too. So I'm curious to see who they're going to start in the playoffs.
If I'm the Leafs, I start Woll in the playoffs. He was good for them in the Bruins series last year, and
he got hurt on a meaningless goal.
Yes, and I mean that's rough with the second left in Game 6 too. And I'm not gonna sit here and say that if he played, they would have won because
Samsonov played well in that Game 7.
He played out of his mind, low key, and there was a 2-1 overtime.
It was not his fault they lost.
He stood on his head for a lot of that game. Boston controlled a lot of that game. I would roll with Woll. I mean, if you roll with Stolars, there's not a problem with that,
I think you just roll with who's ever hot going into the playoffs because it's kind of been like they're split games. So I think at the end of the year, Berube will probably say, okay, you're going to get 3 games. If you play really well, okay, and then see what you got, and then have the other guy play 3 games. And I would just ride whoever played better in that stretch.
Wonder if this goaltending situation turns into what it was for Florida in their first cup run. I'm not saying the Leafs are going to go on a cup run and whatever. I'm not comparing Woll to Bobrovsky, but I'm pretty sure who was the backup to Bobrovsky in 22? Was it Lyon? Was their backup?
Yeah, Lyon started in the playoffs for them. Yeah,
and then he had like one really bad game. They put Bob in, and it was barbecue chicken. The rest, it was. If Bob was lights out, I wonder if that happens. If Lyon gets hot, Stolars gets hot down the stretch. They start him. If he has one bad game or whatever, they pull him, put Woll in, and all of a sudden, the Leafs are in the Eastern Conference Finals.
We'll see. We will see. I mean, Toronto is definitely a much better place, I think, than they have been in the whole Austin Matthews era. I think this is the best all-around team they have. I know we love making all the first-round exit jokes. Could still happen this year. I think their best chance to avoid doing that is to win the division, which they are in a good spot to do.
They are winning the division by points percentage. They have 2 games in hand on the Panthers, and they are 1 point back of them.
Yeah, so they're, I think best case scenario, you get that spot, and then you play a wild card team, which might end up being a pretty good wild card team. You got Tampa Bay, Boston, Ottawa, Detroit, all in that conversation right now for that. Columbus. I think Toronto would be happy to play Columbus.
You know what? I think either way, whether they get the first or second spot, they're in a good spot.
I honestly would really like a Toronto-Ottawa first round.
You know what that would have to do? They would have to finish first. Ottawa would have to finish as the wild card 1 team, and then bang. And right now, that matchup is lining up if you go by points percentage. And you look at Toronto, their first-round potential matchups. If they finish second, they'd most likely face Tampa or Boston.
Please not Boston. Please not Boston.
Not only that, but I think that's also somehow they're still their worst matchup.
I just don't. I don't want the Boston Bruins to make the playoffs because I do not want to watch them.
Thank you. I said that.
They are not a fun team to watch.
Fuck the Boston Bruins.
That series last year felt like watching paint dry.
No, it really did.
Was that Game 7? I know it was like a defensive battle, but it was boring as hell.
I can't believe we did multiple live streams of that game. I mean,
I remember the first game was crazy.
It was fun. The first 2 periods weren't the greatest, but then that third period, it was like the Eastern Conference Finals action. It was so fun to watch.
Yeah, no, that series was pretty brutal. I don't want to see it for a 3rd year in a row. As funny as it would be to see Toronto lose to Boston again, Boston would just get annihilated in the second round by the Panthers.
And even then, I do think that this year Toronto would annihilate Boston in the playoffs.
I don't know. I think it's like a mental case with them because I thought Toronto was the better team than last year in the playoffs.
Yeah, they were.
It's just they get in their own heads. we found so many different ways to lose series in the first round. I thought a lot of people thought things were going to change when they finally got to the second round a few years ago, and then immediately got murdered in the second round.
By who? Tampa was
Florida.
it? Florida.
They beat Tampa in the first round.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
It was like their second or third year in a row playing Tampa in the first round. They beat them I think they beat them in 5 or 6.
It was in 5 games.
Yeah, but they came like from behind a lot of those games. Like this team is different. And then they collapse to Boston, and then they come back from 3-1 down and losing Game 7. Yeah, so they're very good at finding different ways to lose in the first round. But I think if Toronto, honestly, it would be a good storyline for Toronto to play Boston to see if they could finally get over that hurdle.
You know what sucks for Toronto too is in the first round, if they play anybody outside of Boston, I think they'll win that series. If they play Tampa, Ottawa, Detroit, Columbus, or for some reason the Islanders somehow get in.
I agree with you. I think Boston. I think that's the one team they don't want to play. Not necessarily because Boston's better than them, it's just because they get in their heads.
The mental psyche of that series. Like, if you're the Maple Leafs and you're going into this, you're like, fuck, we haven't beat them in a playoff series in years.
I mean, what, do they not bounce them in the first round like 5 times in a row now?
Something like that.
It's been a lot.
I think like 3 7-game series or something like that.
Yeah.
I think 3 straight. I think it was what, 2019?
Yeah,
2019, 23, and 24.
Yeah, so it's been quite the streak for Toronto.
It has been.
Even going back to like 2013 when they blew that Game 7. I don't know if you remember that. They were up
barely.
Toronto was up by I think like 3-1 in the third period, and Boston scored. I don't remember what the score was, but Toronto had like one of the biggest collapses I've ever seen in a playoff game.
Was that was the
Phil Kessel was still on the Leafs. James Reimer was the starter.
Yeah,
they were kind of like a Cinderella story making the playoffs that year, and yeah, they were up big like late in the third period. And they just completely collapsed.
That was what? They were up 3-0 with like 11 minutes left in the third?
Something like that. They had a 2 or 3 goal lead, and they blew it like in like the span of 5 minutes.
That is still nuts. And even worse for them, it was at TD Garden too.
Yeah, no, that game was tough to watch. I remember, the overtime, like Bergeron scored a really cool, like iconic goal in Bruins history. I think Boston might have gone on to the Stanley Cup final that year.
2013? No, they didn't.
I think they made it. Yeah, the 2015 is when they made it the Stanley Cup final.
Wait, did they make it? No, they didn't make it in 2015.
Yeah, they played Chicago.
That was Tampa and Chicago.
Then it must have been 2013. There was a Chicago-Boston Stanley Cup final.
Maybe it was 2013 then.
Yeah, I think it was 2013 because that's when Boston was up by a goal late in Game 6, and Chicago scored 2 really quick goals to win the Stanley Cup.
Okay, yeah, I've seen clips of that before. Sorry, I'm too young for this, guys.
Yeah, I think it was 2013. Yeah.
That was the one where they scored like 2 goals late in the third with
there was like a minute. There was less than a minute left in the game, and they pulled their goalie and they scored to tie it. And then literally like next shift they scored again and they won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, that was nuts. That was that Game 6, right?
Yeah, it was in Boston. Yeah, I remember that building was dead silent.
Oh yeah, I can see why. That's deflating. Like, it's one thing to give up a game, tie, go whatever, going to overtime. Nah, psych, I lied. We're actually winning the cup.
That was a big goal for Dave Bolin because he ended up getting a huge contract from the Maple Leafs the next year.
And how did that turn out? Nada.
He got hurt. He like barely played.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Boston, and then they made the cup again in like 20. Was it 20? They lost to the Blues in 7.
2018-19, yeah.
Yeah.
The Bruins were up 3-2 in that series too.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure Chara was playing with like a broken jaw in that series. That I thought Boston had that series.
Boston was an interesting team during the 2010s because they did win that cup in 2011.
Yeah.
Where Vancouver completely collapsed.
What was the series?
3-1.
That was 3. I did not know that. Again,
it might have been 3-0. It was bad. Like they rioted in Vancouver. It was really, really bad.
Part 5,000. I'm too young. That was rough.
Yeah, I know they were definitely at least up 3-1. And they got their ass kicked in Game 7 too. I think they lost like 4-0 or something.
Really?
Yeah, it was bad.
I know like about the rioting stuff. Again, too young to understand. Like remember watching that series.
There's a good documentary I think I saw on YouTube about
it.
ESPN made one about it. Yeah.
It was that bad.
It was either ESPN made one or I think Sportsnet made a documentary about it.
I'll have to check that out when I have some free time.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Yeah, because they were pissed. They were because they were up 3-1.
Oh, yeah, and Vancouver's a hockey city.
They never won a Stanley Cup before.
That's true. Guys, you guys are getting my full reaction to that entire documentary. No, just kidding.
It's not that interesting, but I remember watching all these games. Jeez, I feel old now.
How old are you? Like 26?
Turned 27 this year.
Okay. Yeah, I'm 23. I mean, it doesn't.
That was right around the time when I really started getting into hockey, and I just watched it all the time.
It's weird because like there's some moments like I remember the Sabres series against Philadelphia.
I remember that too.
Because
I was in 8th grade.
Yeah, I was in 6th grade. That was on Easter, the game 7 it was or whatever. And I remember watching it in my parents' room. But anything that's not a core memory up until like probably 2015 is when I really don't remember stuff. Like I also remember watching the New Jersey Devils and then LA Kings playoff. I mean, not playoff.
So
Stanley Cup
that was funny because I remember that. I remember in school we were talking about the playoffs. Like some of my friends that watched NHL. No one ever believes me when I tell them this story, but that was when the LA was the 8th seed, and we were like all picking teams who we thought was going to win the Stanley Cup, and I was like. Because I was watching like I used to watch like almost every fucking game. I was a kid. I had nothing else to do. I didn't have any video games to really play, and I had the NHL Center Ice package at home. So I would just watch all these games for the playoff race. And I saw like the crazy run the Kings had getting into the playoffs, and it's like I think the Kings are going to win the Stanley Cup. And they're like, shut the fuck up. They're the 8th seed. They're playing the Canucks, who won the President's Trophy. Kick Vancouver's ass. 2nd round. Kick St. Louis's ass. 3rd round. Kick the Coyotes' ass. Stanley Cup final. I wouldn't say they kicked the Devils' ass, but they handled them. It wasn't really a competitive series, especially in the game where they clinched the Stanley Cup. I think they beat them like 8-2.
That 8-2 is crazy.
It was something like they kicked their ass. Like New Jersey had no business being in the Stanley Cup final that year. Marty Brodeur carried them.
Yeah, that's one of those few instances where back in the day a goalie can carry a team to the.
I think that still is applicable because Carey Price did a few years ago with Montreal.
Yeah, he did it.
That team had no business even being in the playoffs.
Was that the expanded 24-team format?
No, that was the COVID bubble.
Oh, okay.
That was the COVID one where they had like the weird divisions.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so yeah, they had like the divisional brackets, and Montreal like came back from 3-1 against Toronto.
Of course.
Like swept the Jets. They beat Vegas in 6, and then they got annihilated by Tampa Bay.
First off, I can see them beating I can see them beating Toronto, whatever. See them beating Winnipeg, but then the kill. No,
it was shocking that they beat Toronto because. Montreal is not a good team.
Well, not only that, but also Toronto was sick nasty during that entire run. Well, you thought they were.
Well, and then because I remember Winnipeg has swept the Oilers in the first round. Because I remember everyone was talking about, does McDavid have what it takes to be good in the playoffs? Because they just got swept, and then everyone was picking the Jets to kill the Canadians, and then they kicked their ass.
Was that the series that Mark Scheifele killed?
Yeah.
I
think he got suspended. Yeah.
That entire low key that
was a really weird playoff run.
That for the Canadians.
Yeah, I remember watching like everyone was just waiting for them to lose, and they got to Vegas like, oh, they're not gonna beat Vegas. Like, come on, and then they beat them. That was crazy. Yeah, but then they got their ass kicked by the Lightning.
I mean, the Lightning, what was that, in 5 games? I think it was.
I remember after, like, Montreal won Game 4 in overtime to force a Game 5, and I remember Kucherov was, like, talking shit after the game. He's like, they won 1 game, and they're acting like they won the Stanley Cup. Like,
listen, they weren't supposed to be here. That expanded 2014 playoff plus the, like, shortened COVID year, that screwed some teams' rebuilds up. I'm not talking about the Canadians specifically. But
no, that fucked them up because they made them think they were way better than they actually were.
It also made the Flyers think that, and it made the Rangers think that, too.
Well, the Flyers actually were good. I think the COVID bubble actually fucked their season.
I'm almost 100% certain, correct me if I'm wrong, they were first in the Metro Division.
They were the 1 seed in the playoffs.
Okay, even better. Look at that. They were the best team in the Eastern Conference.
Well, I don't know. I don't remember the standings going because when the season paused, I think the format was if you were one of the first top 4 seeds in your conference, you just automatically made the playoffs. And you got to play in like a round robin to determine the seeding.
Ooh. So... do you want me to list off 1 through 8, or just the top teams?
Yeah, just the top teams for the Eastern Conference for that year.
So for the top 4, I have Boston, Tampa, Washington, Philly. Boston had 100 points. They were 8 points ahead of Tampa Bay.
Yeah. Yeah, they had the round robin in the playoff bubble because while the other teams were doing like the play-in tournament, like because that was wild how many teams they let participate in that. But yeah, they had the round robin and Philly won the round robin and they were the 1 seed. And I don't remember who they played in the first round. It might have been Pittsburgh. No, it wasn't.
Was
it was Montreal. It was Montreal. Yeah, because Montreal shocked Pittsburgh to get the 8 seed.
Oh, in 1920.
Yeah, because Montreal was the last team to make the playoff bubble, and then they had to play Pittsburgh in the best of 3 series to determine who was going to be in the real playoffs.
And they beat Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they showed that. I remember that was shocking.
Was it 2-0 or in 3 games? Do you remember?
I think it was. Yeah, I think it was. They just beat them 2-0. I remember Chicago shocked Edmonton.
Was this this was also the year that Arizona
they made the playoffs.
Did they make it? Am I tripping, or did they make it to the conference finals?
Oh no, they got their ass kicked. They won the play-in round. I think they beat Nashville and then they got annihilated by the Avalanche. It was murdered.
I mean, the Avalanche were the second best team in the West. St. Louis was number 1 though. 94 points in 71 games. Not bad. That entire those like I guess year and a half of hockey was kind of strange. It really was.
Oh, especially like a lot of the teams weren't allowed to have fans in the building too.
I did enjoy that 21 season to an extent. It did suck for the players and like the league and stuff. Not only are you losing money, but also you don't have fans and like it's just empty. But
I remember it was really weird because of the Stanley Cup final, because the Vegas pretty much didn't really have any restrictions. But then in Montreal, like that's when they finally started letting people go to the games because people were like, it was ridiculous because the Canadian government was saying, oh, we can't have people go into the arena. It's like not safe. But then outside the arena, thousands of people like just packed up watching the game outside together, and they didn't shut that down. And like people were calling them hypocrites, and then they finally started letting some people in the building.
I mean, at some point, if you're not shutting, it's no different than going into the arena.
Well, yeah, you make the argument saying, well, they're all outside. It's like they're all, like 6 inches of each other, like they're packed in like fucking crazy.
If that's the argument some people make, then I guess I can't get sick outside. Then guys, I guess.
Well,
that's
it was like when I remember when the restaurants first started opening up and like you were allowed to because they had the mask mandate still. They're like, oh, you could take your mask off when you're eating. I was like, so I can't get sick while I eat. Right? That makes sense, right?
It made no sense.
I remember I was in an airplane during that, and they were giving out food. I was like, oh, I didn't know they were doing this. So I was like, yeah, you just have to take your mask off between every bite, and so you take your bite of food and then put your mask back on when you're chewing. I was like, dude. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
That's stupid.
Yeah.
That entire whole mask mandate thing was
well,
stupid.
No, I don't disagree necessarily with the wearing masks. We're not going to get too deep into this, but just the silly loopholes and stuff like that. That's what made people question. Is like, okay, so you want me to wear a mask, but I can take it off when I'm eating. I can go on a plane and I can take it off when I'm eating on a plane, and I can't get sick in a restaurant apparently because you're just allowed to take your mask off at your table, and they had those stupid fucking plastic barriers up around everything. It was silly.
I remember when COVID first started, I worked at Tops, and they had on every single register they had like this plexiglass stuff.
This
and
podcast has gone way off.
Yeah,
the rails.
well, they had this plexiglass stuff, and they had to hand you the cash like through this little slot, or like they had the card reader they had it boxed up, and then they would just have the card reader, and you couldn't even hear the customer at the time because not only do you have the barrier, but they're also masked and everything is muffled, and it was fucking.
I remember
stupid.
The Chinese restaurant I go to it was actually kind of impressive, like the barricade they built. So they had the door open and they built a fucking cube where the customer was allowed to stand. There was a fridge there with 2 liters, and then they had everything behind. You were not allowed to pay cash. They only took cards, and they had a little slot cut out where you could put your credit card in for the card reader.
That's crazy.
And then they had a fucking 2-way. So they had this box. So they had the bag of food. They'd open the box. Put the food in the box, close their door, and then once they closed their door, you were allowed to open your door and take the food.
That's nutty. That's nutty.
I mean, they still use it. I mean, shit. I mean, it was kind of impressive.
So that is impressive. Speaking of not taking cash or whatever, I'm not old enough to remember this, but you know how we're most professional stadiums, they only take card now? Before COVID, was it still like that?
I think.
'Cause I'm kind of curious now.
I mean, I didn't used to go to that many games. I was in high school and college. I didn't really have a lot of money to go to games, but
thought maybe as the older person.
I'm not that old. Jesus Christ. Oh my God. I mean, as far as I know, I mean, I don't know when they started moving to the card thing. I know like they used to have paper tickets.
Yeah, you know what?
I'm old enough to remember that.
Yeah, I remember that. Listen, if there's some like old head that's listening or
when
watching,
when did the NHL stop taking cash at arenas?
Yes, or just any professional venue. Like,
I mean, I want to say
it
was probably a pre-COVID thing because it just made the lines go faster.
Yeah, because then you don't have people like, dude, I have Bill seasons, and there was fucking a 65-year-old man or like anybody
a drunk
in general,
dude trying to buy like something
with cash.
And like, and then like trying to fucking do the coins. Like it just takes longer.
Get the fuck out of the line, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I remember though, like back in the day when you used to buy tickets online, like you can have an option to have them mailed to you.
That's sick.
I kind of like that because it was like a little souvenir, especially if you didn't go to that many games. You want like a little memento. Like I still have my paper ticket from when I went to the first Winter Classic.
That's sick. That's sick. Maybe do show and tell with it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, the Sabres used to have. That was one thing I always thought was the coolest thing about when you got season tickets for like any sports team is like they would mail you a box with all of your tickets in it.
That's sick, man. I wish the Bills had that. Fuck.
Yeah, because I would even take like a fucking card or something.
Yeah.
Just like the Sabres did that for a few years. They did the season ticket cards, but then when COVID started, they switched to completely digital tickets.
Yeah.
I think the only way to get a paper ticket now is if you buy like something from the box office.
You have to go right to the arena.
And they print it out there, and it's not anything fancy. Like they used to be like nice, like big tickets. They have like like different players on the ticket for every game. They have the game number and opponent, like a nice decal on it. Like they were like actually some people used to collect them.
Now it's just like, here's your barcode, here's the game with the time. There you go.
Yeah, here's your seats. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, pretty much. Do you want to go into contenders and pretenders?
Yeah, let's get back on track. That was a good story time episode. If you're still here, thank you. We appreciate it.
Okay, so we have contenders and pretenders. Do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, I'll start with I think, an interesting one, the Washington Capitals.
They are... Fuck it, I'm buying in. They're contenders. They are going to go out and get some type of piece at the deadline.
They don't have any cap space.
I don't care if they don't have cap space. Make cap space at this point. You know what?
Who's getting hurt for the team?
Hold on, actually. I have to pull up cap wages real quick.
Who has a high enough salary that isn't a big enough impact of a player where they could say, you're hurt, sit down for a couple of weeks.
Sit down.
And still try to win the President's Trophy.
Okay, well, they actually have 3.8 in cap space. Thank you very much.
Is someone hurt right now?
Well, on LTIR, they have $16 million. They have Oshie and Milano.
Is Milano out for the year?
I don't know, actually. He's still on LTIR. I don't know. I mean, he's only making 1.9.
I know Oshie and Backstrom are done, though.
Yeah, they're donezo.
Yeah.
So let's see who we're looking at. Alexander Ovechkin's making 9.5.
He's not, no.
Yeah, I know he's not. Tom Wilson's a good candidate, 6.5.
He's been really good this year.
He has been great. Andrew Mangiapane, you just broke your wrist. Call you Sean Monahan.
Pierre-Luc Dubois. Oh, my back.
PLD 8 points. PLD's going to like fake a fall into the corner. I'm out for the next 2 months. I can't wait until game 1.
I mean, we're just fucking around. The Capitals will not actually do that. Only Vegas does that.
Only Vegas. Who says that? I know that entire meme of Vegas doing that and stuff, but I think that Mark Stone is really hurt. It's.
I agree with you, but it is just convenient though
that it happened 3 straight years.
And then he's always back for game 1.
Yeah, it is. It is. People like to call it a coincidence, but it is kind of like sketchy. I mean, I get it.
I don't know. I think it's just a fun thing to poke at. Like the other thing with like the draft lottery being rigged when Chicago won the lottery. Yeah. Caught at Bedard. But let's get back to the Capitals. So you think you're calling them contenders?
I am.
They're really. I still can't put a gauge on this team.
It's hard.
People are gonna call me idiot because like, well, they're competing for the President's Trophy. Like, how are they not contenders? And I agree with you. It's just I don't know, man. Like, I've seen them play in person. Like the Sabres beat them. Like
it is tough with the Capitals because they just keep finding ways to win no matter what. And there's going to be 2 things. Either A, they're going to hang around.
I mean, how long is Logan Thompson going to keep playing the way he has been?
He's been carrying low key. Him and Ovi's been carrying the team.
Like I'd be interested to see like advanced analytics for this team, like just as a team as a whole, to see where they stand on things, to see because there are like statistically teams that are lucky.
Well, I'm at Money Puck right now. Let me see. Do we have all situations, 24, 25?
But it is hard for me to call a team that is could potentially win the President's Trophy, like not a contender.
I mean, I totally get that, but like I'm looking at some of their advanced analytics, like offensively wise, for example, like their expected goals percentage is it's ninth. Their goals percentage in general is second. So they are overperforming in that aspect. Can I get something to move over here? Thank you.
I'm really curious to see the expected goals against.
Hold on. Fuck this Google ad, bro. Holy shit. I just want to fucking slide over. Is it that hard? There we go. Thank you, guys. Sorry for that. Okay. So we're going to do expected goals and then expected goals against. So expected goals for, they are currently they're sixth in the league at 187.45. Expected goals against, they are, 13th at 167.15.
What's their actual goals against?
Their actual goals against is 140. Expected goal, their actual goals for is 196.
So they're overperforming the analytics.
They are. Goals for above expected 8.55. Goals against above expected negative 30.15.
That's crazy.
Logan Thompson is saving their ass. I mean, he's playing great hockey, though.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that they're getting lucky. I don't know. I feel like hockey is a sport, though, where like luck is an aspect, like getting a bounce or something, because hockey's so unpredictable.
Yeah, true.
Because it's harder to get lucky in other sports like basketball or football, where it's more controlled. Because hockey is just all chaos all the time. Like I would say hockey is one of the most chaotic sports. There's just always something crazy going on. It is. It's so fast and so easy to just make one little mistake and the puck's in your net.
It's sometimes too, like the bounces go your way, you can end up in the finals. Bounces don't go your way, like we saw last year with Carolina, for example, against the Rangers. The bounces just didn't fall their way. Granted, they ran into a hot goaltender in Igor Shesterkin, but still, though, like they just weren't able to get it done. And Washington's on the exact opposite side of the spectrum this season, where they're getting all the bounces. And like my argument with the Capitals, and somebody disagreed with me in the TikTok comment section when I posted one of our shorts, is I was like, do you really trust Ovi to go out there in a 7-game series and score 4 goals for you? Like we saw, like I get last year we saw him in the playoffs put up no shots, no goals.
I mean, that team had no business being there.
That's true, but like I'm looking at it now, like is the only reason that he is putting up these goals and actually trying is because he wants the record and
I mean,
playoffs.
I do believe that Ovi will try in the playoffs.
I'm not saying that he's going to sit here and just like lily, what is it? Like
lollygag?
Yeah, that.
Lillygag.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing with the Capitals for me that's hard to gauge is like, I don't know if this is like a thing other people do, but like when I'm thinking about teams, like can I mentally picture this team as it is right now, like winning the Stanley Cup? And honestly, I don't. I don't know if that's just because, I still have that aspect of them from last year in my mind.
Yeah.
Where like I saw them as a team like, okay, yeah, they got lucky. They shouldn't have made the playoffs and then got annihilated by the Rangers. I mean, I know like the numbers don't lie. They're good. I just have a tough time seeing it. I definitely think they win a playoff round. Like they will definitely, like they're going to play a wild card team. Most likely wild card 2, which is, I think they'll win.
Probably they'll be playing either
but
Ottawa.
Can they beat a team like New Jersey or Carolina in the second round? That is my biggest question for them.
Ooh.
I think they beat the Devils. I think Carolina will give them a really tough series. I know you're Mr. New Jersey Devils dude, so you're going to say
call me crazy. I think that they can beat the Hurricanes. Realistically, I think they can beat the Devils. I think they can beat any team in the Metro. Like genuinely.
Can they beat the Panthers?
I don't think so.
Can they beat the Maple Leafs?
I think there's only 2 teams that they can't beat, and those are the 2 teams that you listed off. And I think Washington's the 3rd best team in the East. Is that crazy at all? Like,
I don't know why I'm so low on this team.
Do we see this team, if they have to face, let's say Tampa makes it to the Eastern Conference Finals, is Washington going to beat them? Or if they face in the playoffs?
I think Washington would beat Tampa Bay. Yeah, easily.
Even if it's the first round, too, if Tampa falls down? Fair enough. So
like, I do agree with you. Like if it was like a conference final, it was Washington versus Florida or Toronto, I would pick Florida or Toronto to win that series.
I agree. Holy shit, we agree for once in this episode.
Okay, so I picked one. You could pick a team that quiz me on.
Okay. We have the New Jersey Devils.
I knew you were going to say them.
You want me to do somebody else? I wanted to do Florida or Toronto, but they're so obvious contenders.
I don't. New Jersey's another tough team for me. It depends how good Jacob Markstrom is when he comes back from his injury.
Can I give you a different team instead?
Sure.
It'd be more challenging. Ottawa Senators.
They're not contenders.
Do you think it's that easy?
They're playoff contenders, but do you see them doing significant damage in the playoffs?
Possibility.
I think they could be a dark horse candidate to like have an upset in the first round, depending on who they play. Like I said earlier, I would love to see them play the Toronto Maple Leafs in the first round. I think that would be a big. That rivalry kind of needs to be reignited. Mm-hmm. I think I would love to see Brady Tkachuk in a playoff series. I think you would see another side of him that you haven't seen before.
I am praying to God we get a first-round matchup of Ottawa and Florida.
That would be a lot of fun to watch.
You guys will see a 7.
I mean, I still take Leafs in 6, but I think it'd be fun to watch.
Leafs in 6?
Yeah.
If they played Ottawa?
Yeah. Unless Linus Mark plays like a god.
I think it'd be 6 or 7. I don't see Toronto necessarily dominating this series.
I think it would be close games. I don't think they sweep or beat them in 5.
Toronto also has a much better coach and a much better roster, and I think that their goaltending can get them by.
The Senators are playing with house money, though. I got nothing to lose.
That's true. That's true. They could.
Because the beauty of when you've been kind of stuck in the mud for so long, and you finally get to the playoffs, like fuck it, we're here. Let's just have fun.
You know what?
And then next year, that's when the expectations start.
And then they'll crumble because that's what the Ottawa Senators do.
We'll see. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, when was the last time they even made the playoffs?
2017 when they lost in the Eastern Conference Finals.
They had no business being in that series either.
And somehow they almost made it to the Cup final. They lost in overtime in Game 7.
I remember watching. Did you watch that Game 7?
Yeah, I did.
That shot Chris Kunitz had was perfect.
He could not have placed that.
I mean, what a pass by Crosby, though.
Crosby with the hell of a feed. Kunitz shot that at the perfect time.
It was like he put a fucking coin in like a coin slot. Like it was Craig Anderson was like, I don't know. That was perfect.
He didn't even move. Craig Anderson didn't even move.
It went right over his shoulder, and I was like, yeah, I don't know how you stopped that. That was perfect. It was like a knuckle puck. He got down on one knee.
He held that for a split second. Found the perfect screen in front of Anderson.
Perfectly placed shot.
Oh, my God.
Could not get any more perfectly than that.
And then the Penguins went on to win their second straight cup.
Yeah. But Ottawa, I think, would be a really fun team to watch in the playoffs. You know, I would kind of be bitter about them making the playoffs because, you know, they haven't been rebuilding for as long as the Sabres have, and they've already finished their rebuild faster than the Sabres have.
To be honest, every team does at this rate.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think Ottawa's like a serious contender for the Cup. They're definitely playoff contenders. Like I think they will make the playoffs.
It's weird with the Eastern Conference because it feels like you look at the West, it's so top heavy, but you also look at the East, it's like you have Florida, Toronto, Washington, Carolina, and New Jersey. Those are 5 teams that you can see. I know you said you can't picture Washington winning the Cup. Can you picture Carolina or New Jersey winning the Cup at all?
I could picture Carolina doing it.
Carolina. So we're looking right now at the top 3 teams, probably Florida, Toronto.
If I had to pick 3 teams in the Eastern Conference that I think could win the Cup, it would be the Florida Panthers, Toronto Maple Leafs, and the Carolina Hurricanes.
You know what's crazy to me? I'm gonna have to stick with my guns and say New Jersey because,
like I said, New Jersey's a weird team to me.
They have to get hot.
They've been kind of all over the place this year. They'll have a stretch of games when they look amazing, and then they have another stretch of games where they can't score. Mm-hmm. And then Jacob Markstrom's out, and Jake Allen's been good enough, but he's not like a full-time starter. You know, if Jacob Markstrom comes back from his injury, maybe they make a move at the deadline. They always are pretty active in trade markets. Maybe they can make a run, but then they have to get through Washington and Carolina. And you're looking at most likely playing Carolina in the first round of the playoffs. That's a tough first round matchup.
You're gonna have to go through Carolina, whether you have home ice or not. Right now, it's up in the
air.
And
I think Carolina is a better team than New Jersey, and I think they will slow them down defensively.
Carolina is one of the most defensively structured teams in the league. We've seen it time and time again, and it's where in New Jersey's case, like. I don't know if they potentially have the strong enough goaltending to be like, you know what, we can hold it down here and win 2-1 games. I also don't know if they have the discipline.
They played each other in the playoffs a few years ago, but New Jersey's in a much different spot now than they were. That was kind of when they were the young and frisky Devils. It's like, oh my God, they beat the Rangers. Like, who saw that coming? But they were playing with freaking Vitek Vanacek and Akira Schmid, and they had to start him in the second round. They were awful. And now you have a much better goaltending tandem, which I think will make a huge, huge difference, in this probably rematch we're going to get. Pending a Washington collapse or New Jersey and Carolina are probably playing in the first round.
They will play in the first round, barring any. I mean, yeah, no, they definitely are. I think that's set. I don't think neither team's catching up to Washington, and I don't think Columbus 8 points back of the Devils.
No,
for the
I
third
agree
spot.
with you. That might be like a lot. I think at that point they just may be playing for who has home ice.
Yeah,
which might make a difference because Carolina plays really well at home.
I think it makes a difference for both teams.
What's Carolina's record?
Carolina's
on the road.
On the road, they're 12-13-1. At home, they're 21-6-1.
Yeah, so Carolina, I think home ice is a big deal for them. They have a really rowdy building. I think home ice is a really big deal for them.
If the Devils snag home ice from Carolina, it will go 7 games, and I think the Devils win that series tight. And if Carolina gets home ice, it's probably going to be the same thing except Carolina comes out on top. This could be one of those series where every single home team wins in that series, like genuinely.
Yeah.
But like New Jersey though, like they're 16-11-2 on the road. They're 15-9-4 at home, so they're more a balanced team. So I wonder if it means more for Carolina. It feels like definitely, at least with their away and home splits.
The thing that would be really interesting to me to see for Carolina in the playoffs is to see if they can steal the game on the road, especially like I think if New Jersey gets home ice advantage in that playoff series and Carolina goes into games 1 or 2 and steals one of them, I think that bodes much better for the Hurricanes being able to have a deep playoff run. Because if they're going to need to rely on home ice for a playoff run, like, okay, most likely you're not going to – okay, you get home ice against New Jersey. Let's say you beat them. Chances are you're probably going to play Washington in the second round, and you're not going to get home ice. Can you overcome that? Especially if they lose. Like, if they beat the Devils in 7 and all 3 of their losses are on the road, I don't know if they can beat Washington then.
That's going to be rough for Carolina.
Yeah.
They have to learn how to win on the road and not rely on their home crowd. And that also bodes rough because Washington's a better team on the road than at home. So if you're Carolina, let's say they get home ice, they get past New Jersey in the first round. Now you have to go to Washington. And if you don't steal a game in Washington, now you're going up. You're down 2-0 potentially, going back to Raleigh, North Carolina. You can find yourself down 3-1 going back to going back to Washington. And then it's just barbecue chicken from there.
I mean, we've seen some pretty crazy stuff in the playoffs the last few years with 3-1 leads, but
I mean,
never know.
If one team that can come back from it against Washington, Carolina can.
I mean, unless they get goalied again. That seems to happen to them every year.
I mean, Logan Thompson's playing phenomenal hockey, like we've said 6 million
He's not
times.
Igor Shesterkin, but
I mean, Igor, I think he just got hot at the right time last year, and just Carolina was a much better team last year, and I think
I hate Igor Shesterkin because he made me think the Rangers were way better than they were going to be.
The Rangers last year in the entire playoff round was like in the entire playoffs in general. He just his save percentage was like close to .930.
Yeah.
He was just playing out of his mind, and the Rangers just weren't playing good.
Well, he was playing at like a Conn Smythe level, like the whole playoffs.
If they went to the finals,
he would have won the Conn Smythe.
Yes.
Unless they played McDavid, and McDavid had that historic performance.
And then it's whoever won that series would have gotten the Conn Smythe. So
yeah, for sure.
That's going to end it for today's episode. If you guys enjoy all of our content, head over to our Instagram down in the description below for more exclusive content. If you guys are listening over on Apple and Spotify, head over to our YouTube for more exclusive content as well. Subscribe, notification bell. Thank you guys for being here. See you guys in our next episode.